Alright, so I've been doing some work to the Ranger today, so I figured I'd start going over my whole 5.0 swap, and the best place I thought to start was at the transmission. It just kind of came to mind first. I'll just go ahead and see what happens. So what I ended up doing was, for my 5.0 swap, I wanted a manual transmission, because originally this came with an M5R1, and it was a factory manual truck. So what I wanted to do was, when I did the 5.0 swap, everything stayed manual. So as I found out, what I needed to get was a M5R2 out of an F-150. So one came up locally on Craigslist for a deal I couldn't refuse, and I bought it. The only problem was that I had to cut the transmission tunnel to kind of fit the shifter. See, originally the shifter was right here, but because I used a 94, which was the old OBS style F-150 transmission, I had to move this forward a little bit. So I'm currently still working on a solution to mount this thing, probably using an automatic transmission Ranger cup holder here, and an F-150 bracket for the shift boot over there. So shifter I'm still working on is a shifter out of a 97 F-150. As it turns out, the 97 shifter assembly and newer, and the 96 and older, so the OBS Ford and then the kind of the roundish style F-150s, it turns out that the shifter fork, not shifter fork, but the shifter that goes into the transmission itself is different. And I didn't know that going into it, so I kept on having this guy jam whenever I tried to install it, and I had no idea why. So that's kind of something to look out for. If you get like a early transmission, the late shifters won't fit properly. This one was actually re-welded, as in I didn't want to go and try to find another one of these at the junkyard. So I had my buddy, we cut it and re-welded it so that the shifter is supposed to be directly in line. Before it'd be at a 90-degree angle, like this way. But we kind of got it a little off, so it doesn't sit exactly even. And the stock one's kind of sat about here, because the F-150 is wider, of course. So in the future, we probably have to fix this guy. But for now, I mean, this is with the F-150 M5R2. And it's just it's really close to here. But I can go through all the gears. Anyway, the M5R1 and the M5R2 are close in size. In terms of dimensions, width-wise, the M5R2 is a bit bigger than the M5R1, but length-wise, they're about the same. In terms of driveshaft fits. There's a stock manual Ranger driveshaft, and I'm actually running a Ford 8.8 rear from an Explorer. But yeah, that stock driveshaft fits just fine, as well as the stock transmission mount for the Ranger. That does bolt up in place of the F-150 one. Clutch-wise, I had to end up running the bigger of the two clutches. That was I think it's 11.5-inch diameter clutch assembly with flywheel. So for clutch hydraulics, I ended up using the M5R1 master cylinder from the Ranger. I ended up having to get another one because mine blew out whenever I did the swap. The slave cylinder is exactly the same between the Ranger and the F-150. So the pedal feels a little heavier, but not bad. But it was kind of a pain to bleed, especially with the V8s, because they're a lot more touchy when it comes to any air in the system, it seems like. Because what I had a problem was with the clutch dragging for quite a while. And we're just kind of have to fight with it. And it eventually started working again. So it was one of those things you just had to kind of work with for a while before it ended up wanting to run right. One of the last problems I faced was the transmissions out of the F-150s did not have a speedometer drive like the M5R1s did. So I ended up having to create my own, and I used the GPS speedometer from eBay. And it ended up working really, really well. So I'll drop a link for that one too. And, you know, the install on it wasn't too bad. I'll probably have a video where I go over that. But really, that's about it for the transmission setup as far as I've done. But I'll update it as I find anything new.